I've always liked those Pixel A series phones because I think that they've been really good value for money every single year. But now that Pixel 7a is $50 more expensive than the Pixel 6a from last year, is it still a really good deal? At first glance, if you have a look at this Pixel 7a and Pixel 7 proper side by side, you would really struggle to notice the difference between these two phones. And that's one thing that I really like, because actually you'd think that you'd start to notice the differences fairly quickly after using it, but actually it's not as easy as you think. I really like the design this year. I think it's taken a step up from last year's 6a and it feels a little bit more grown up. The camera bar at the back changing from glass to what I think now is plastic, it now doesn't feel better, but it does look a lot nicer. The Pixel 7a this year feels a little bit more rounded than last year's Pixel 6a, and it feels a bit thicker as well, which sometimes you might see that as a bit of a negative, but actually I think it's really good because it's a little better to hold in your hand every day. It has the hole punch cutout on the display, which is fine. I'm just not a big fan of hole punch cutouts on any display. It's not a negative, it's just that I don't like them. And something else that the Pixel A series has for the first time this year is wireless charging, and trust me, it is slow, like it's not quick, but you still finally do get wireless charging on an A series from Pixel. So far so good. The Pixel 7a looks like a really good deal for $450, and actually it gets even better when we have a look at that display. Your first thought when you look at this display might be, whoa, there are some chunky bezels, and I 100% agree. They aren't amazing, but when you're looking at a mid-range phone, especially for now, you need to accept that this is not going to win any awards for things like the world's thinnest bezels. The trade-off here, though, is that Google have made this 6.1-inch OLED display, which is now being bumped up to do 90 Hz, which most other even mid-range phones don't even do. Even for an example, Apple's iPhone 14 Plus, $949, is capped at 60 Hz and doesn't even have a 90 Hz option. You do need to turn on 90 Hz in the settings when you first get this phone, and I think they've done that because most people probably won't want 90 Hz, but the option is there. When you do turn it on though, it makes this feel like such an upgrade over any of the other Pixel A phones. When you start to scroll through Twitter and Instagram, and even just on the home screen itself, it feels really nice, and I feel like you can really notice that difference between 60 and 90 Hz. I'll put them side by side here, and I'm not sure how well this comes across on camera, but in person you can absolutely tell the difference. This feels like you're using a much more premium phone with that 90 Hz refresh rate than what is just a $450 phone. So I think adding that refresh rate has really taken this Pixel 7a series to that next step up. Whilst we're talking about the display, I think this is a really nice display. If you're sat inside and watching anything or gaming or whatever, it looks really good. You'll have no complaints at all. If you go outside though and use this on like a really properly sunny day, I've got to say it's not the brightest. And I found it a little bit difficult to see exactly what was on that display. I kind of got myself squinting a little bit, so I did wish outside it was a little bit brighter with its peak brightness. This though is a really good time to bring in that battery life. One of my biggest worries about mid-range phones is that they're not actually going to last all day, and I found that in older Pixel A phones like the 6a and the 4a, but this year I've not had a single worry about this battery life. I'm a really average phone user, so I feel like I'm in a really good position to tell you exactly what I think about the battery on this phone. My day consists of basically going on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. I don't really game at all on my phones, and then I'll take a couple of pictures and do some video as well. So literally a bang average user for a phone. And I haven't really got to a point yet where I'm worried about this running out of battery. That G2 chip and the 4300 mAh battery work really well together to keep performance going through an entire day, and just then lowering it when it needs to be. And if you are worried, you also have that low power mode as well. I mean, it's been close to running out of battery in a day. I'm not going to lie and say it's been amazing all the time, but if you just charge your phone overnight, then it should be absolutely fine. Whilst we're talking about the battery and charging though, can I just say, don't try and charge this wirelessly. It is so slow. It's nice to have, but it is so slow that the Pixel 8a will be out before this phone can even fully charge. So just plug it in. Okay, let's do cameras. The best thing about a Pixel phone is that you seem to get photos that are really close to the main Pixel phone at the time. So for this time, it's the 7 and 7 Pro. And Google upgraded the cameras from last year's 6A, and quite a big jump as well. It's gone from 12 megapixels to 64 megapixel on that main sensor, and this is such a nice change. The photos that you can take on this 7A, I think really do stack up to the regular Pixel 7 and the 7 Pro, and unless you're comparing photos side by side, which I'm not going to do, you can't really tell the difference. They look punchy and grab some really nice detail, and I can't find anything to complain about when taking these photos. If you really wanted to pick them apart a little bit, I'm sure you could, but it's a $450 phone, and without doubt, this takes the best pictures of any phone at this price range. So trying to pick these photos apart and say highlights and shadows aren't good enough, I think is just a waste of time. The other camera is a 13 megapixel ultra wide, and I think this does a really decent job as well. I don't ever really use the ultra wide on the phones that often, but I did use the 7 Pro for a couple of weeks earlier on this year, and I think that this ultra wide does kind of compare to that flagship phone, and it does do a really decent job. Video on Google Pixels has always been something that I think that lets it down, and on the Pixel 7a, I mean, it's really like mid-tier. You can shoot 4K at 60 frames a second, and this is pretty much anything you'd ever need in a phone, to be honest, and the Pixel 7a gives it to you. If you stand still, the video is actually pretty decent. It's when you start to move around or walk and then shoot video, that's where it can let itself down a little bit, and that's just with stabilization. But I think that most people would be quite happy. I'm just used to really good video on an iPhone, so I'm kind of comparing it to that, which I know is unfair, but the Pixel 7a does decent-ish video. The best thing though about this Pixel 7a is that it is $200 less than the Pixel 7, and usually you would expect quite a big difference for that price, but there just isn't a huge difference. It's so close, it's stupid. Okay, the design with those bezels, yes, it does look a bit worse. That camera bump on the back is a bit bigger, but I don't think we mind that. When you're able to get a $450 phone stack up to something that is $200 more, and you can't really tell the difference between performance and photos and videos, I would say that that is a pretty good job done by Google this year with the Pixel 7a. If you have a Pixel 6a, then yes, sure, absolutely upgrade, because there are enough upgrades on this from last year's A series to warrant that upgrade. That 90Hz display alone is worth it, but then thrown in with that, you get wireless charging, you get water resistance, and you get that new 64 megapixel main camera, so it's absolutely worth that upgrade. And if you're thinking about upgrading to that regular Pixel 7, just take a second, think about it, have a look at the Pixel 7a, and you might just reconsider, because I think that this could be one of the phones of the year. If you enjoyed this video and liked it, then subscribe to the channel and turn the notifications on as well, and let me know in the comments, what do you think of that Pixel 7a? I think it's actually pretty good this year, but let me know what you think, and if you do that, then I will see you later.